The restaurant was buzzing with the usual Friday night crowd. Dishes clattered, conversations overlapped, and laughter floated through the warm air. Among the waitstaff rushing between tables was a young woman named Emily. Her uniform was slightly faded, her shoes worn down from long shifts, but her smile never seemed to leave her face. To most, she was just another waitress working tirelessly to make ends meet. But behind that smile was a story no one in the restaurant knew, a story of loss, sacrifice, and unshaken hope. Emily wasn't just working for herself. Every dollar she earned, every tip she collected, went to support her ailing mother who was fighting a long, exhausting illness. Life had taken its toll on her family. Medical bills piled up, debt collectors called constantly, and food on the table often came second to paying for medicine. Yet, despite it all, Emily carried herself with dignity. She believed that kindness mattered even when life felt unkind to her. That night, a tall, older gentleman walked in. His presence commanded attention without effort. He wasn't flashy, but something about him, the way people subtly glanced at him, the respectful nods he received from a few who recognized him, hinted at who he was. Richard Halden. A billionaire, known in the business world as both ruthless and brilliant, but to the public, he was more of a mystery. Some called him cold, others admired his unmatched success. Emily didn't recognize him at first. To her, he was just another customer. She approached his table with the same warm smile she offered everyone. "Good evening, sir. May I take your order?" she asked politely. Richard barely looked up from the small leather box he held in his hand. He seemed lost in thought, staring at a simple gold ring with a small diamond set in the middle. His eyes softened, almost as if he had drifted back in time. Emily's gaze fell upon the ring, and before she could stop herself, the words slipped out. "Sir. My mom has the same ring." The man's head jerked up. His eyes locked onto hers, wide and disbelieving. For a moment, the restaurant noise seemed to fade into silence. His lips trembled as though he wanted to speak, but instead, his face drained of color. Seconds later, the billionaire collapsed, his body hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Gasps filled the restaurant. Chairs scraped back, people shouted for help, and Emily's heart raced as she knelt beside him. She called out for someone to dial emergency services, but she stayed by his side, gripping his hand, whispering words of reassurance until the paramedics arrived. At the hospital later that night, Emily waited anxiously. Though she had no obligation to stay, something in her heart told her this wasn't just about a stranger. That ring, why had it felt so significant? Hours passed before a doctor finally told her he was stable. Stress and an old heart condition had caused the collapse. Still shaken, Emily decided to check on him once he was awake. When Richard regained consciousness, the first thing he asked wasn't where he was or what had happened. He asked, the waitress, "Where is she?" Emily stepped inside quietly. She felt nervous but determined to return the kindness life often denied her. Richard's tired eyes softened when he saw her. "You said, your mother has this ring?" he asked, his voice raspy. "Yes," Emily nodded. "It was the only piece of jewelry she's ever cherished. She said it came from someone she once loved, a man she never saw again." Richard's hand trembled as he held the ring closer to his chest. His eyes glistened with tears. "That's because, it was me." The truth unfolded like a storm breaking open the sky. Decades ago, before Richard had become wealthy, he had fallen in love with a young woman, Emily's mother, Grace. Life had been cruel then, too. He was poor, jobless, and struggling to find his path. Grace's family had disapproved of him, and circumstances pulled them apart. He had given her that ring as a promise that one day, when he had something to offer, he would return. But fate separated them before that promise could be fulfilled. Richard buried himself in work, chasing wealth and success, until he became the man the world knew today. But with that success came loneliness. He never married, never built a family. Deep down, he had always carried the regret of losing Grace. And now, by some impossible twist of fate, her daughter stood before him. Emily was overwhelmed. She could hardly process the idea that this billionaire was connected to her mother's past. Yet, something inside her, perhaps the same kindness she inherited from Grace, urged her to listen. Richard asked to meet Grace, and despite her reservations, Emily agreed. The following day, Emily wheeled her frail mother into the hospital room. When Grace saw Richard, time seemed to freeze. Her eyes filled with tears, and though her voice was weak, she whispered, "Richard." It was as if the years melted away. For hours, they talked, sharing the life stories they had lived apart, grieving for what was lost, and marveling at the miracle of finding each other again. But not everything was simple. Grace's health was deteriorating rapidly. Emily faced the harsh reality that even with this reunion, time was slipping away. Medical bills were still crushing, and every day felt like a battle. Richard, moved by both guilt and love, vowed to help. He used his wealth to provide the best treatment, the best care, and most importantly, to give Emily and Grace hope they hadn't dared to dream of. Emily, however, struggled with another challenge: trust. She had grown up seeing how the wealthy often looked down on people like her. Could she truly believe that Richard's intentions were pure? Was this sudden generosity real, or just a way to ease his guilt? Yet, Richard proved himself not through words but through actions. He visited Grace daily, listened to Emily's struggles, and even learned the small routines of their lives. He was no longer just a billionaire, he became a part of their family, making up for years of absence. Months passed, and while Grace's health never fully returned, her final days were filled with love, care, and peace. On one quiet evening, surrounded by Emily and Richard, Grace whispered, "Now I can go in peace, knowing my daughter is not alone." Her passing was heartbreaking, but it also marked the beginning of healing. Emily grieved deeply, yet she carried her mother's final words as a guiding light. Richard, too, found himself transformed. The cold billionaire who once lived only for business now had a family he never expected. He offered Emily opportunities, not just financially, but also emotionally, mentorship, support, and unconditional care. Emily, with her resilience and kindness, inspired Richard to start a foundation in Grace's name, helping struggling families with medical expenses. It became his legacy, not just wealth, but compassion. In the end, Emily's life changed forever. From being a poor waitress who lived on hope and sacrifice, she grew into a woman who carried her mother's kindness into the world. And Richard, the billionaire who once thought he had everything, discovered that true wealth was not in money but in love, family, and the lives he touched. Closing message for YouTube. And that, dear friends, is the story of how a poor waitress's simple words, "My mom has the same ring," changed not only her life but also the heart of a billionaire. Sometimes, life brings people back together in the most unexpected ways, reminding us that love and kindness outlast even the longest years apart. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe fate brings people back together when the time is right? Share your feelings, I read every single comment. And if you'd like more stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us to be kind always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. Because at the end of the day, kindness is the true legacy we leave behind.